Hey guys, your teacher here, bringing you an overview of what was seen during the last 2 weeks of pronunciation, and also adding some tips for you to be prepared for next week's assignments, since this term is going to be all about pronunciation and expanding your comprehension of foreign sounds and also your ability to produce them. So today we're going to have a class about pronunciation and the intro to phonemes. You can pause the video here and you can go look for the second guide, which is the one from the 23rd, and use that material and practice with that material as you see this class, since most of what is here is from that material. So phonemes, as it is expressed on that guide, it is the smallest unit of sound in a word that makes a difference in its pronunciation as well as its meaning from another word. So you can see here two words. You have mom and Tom. So you can make the phonetic transcription of these two words, and you have an an and an sound. So you have mom, but when you find the phonetic transcription of Tom, you have here the t sound, an and sound, making Tom. So this phoneme and this phoneme makes a difference in sound as well as it makes a difference in meaning, being mom a person and this just a name. So in the English vocabulary, as it is, there are a minimum of 24 consonant sounds and 10 vowel sounds. Why do I say minimum? Because as all of you know, you have different dialects, not only accents, like for example you have the British pronunciation or received pronunciation, you have the American pronunciation and the Australian pronunciation, but also within these accents you also have dialects in each one of them, and not everyone speaks the same way even in the same country. This happens with all languages, where you can have, for example, our country, Venezuela, where people from Caracas and people from El Tigre don't speak the same way as Maracuchos do, or they obviously speak different from each other as well. So you have different sounds, and that basically describe how we use the language. It is very crucial to understand that these transcriptions are not letters. These are units of sound. These are phonemes. Okay, they are not to be confused with the letters, which are obviously both are symbols, but this is how we write, and this is just a transcription of representing how a word sounds, but this is not a way to write words. Okay, so today's video I wanted to set a goal, which is not to learn about phonemes, okay, because I know that is boring and we're not gonna bore you with phonemes and transcriptions. The idea is to improve your pronunciation, so the goal is to find a solution for these three obstacles that I set using the guides and what I'm looking forward to you guys to learn. So the first obstacle when improving your pronunciation is the phonetic orthography. Okay, and here I'm going to explain in a very simple way what phonetic orthography is. So phonetic orthography is an orthography, of course, in which the written symbols, as you can see here, okay, correspond to the phonemes. Okay, it's as basic as that. If you don't understand that, don't worry, because I have a very simple example for you here using our native tongue, which is Spanish. So with Spanish, okay, we have, for example, two words here. We have agua y válvula. When looking at agua, the phonetic transcription of agua, you have here an a g, u, and a sounds. Okay, so a gu, u, and a make agua. As simple as that. So you can see that each sound and each written letter here correspond to a symbol, and it is consistent. That is why phonetic orthography is also referred to as phonetic consistency, because Spanish, although it's not perfectly consistent, it is a very consistent phonetically. So we have here both a sounds are the same, they correspond to each sound, and here the u also to the u and g and so on. And we're looking over here, we have two v's, two l's, two a's, and we have here the two u's and the four a's, and we can see that these sounds also correspond to the same phonemes. Okay, just like the two v's correspond to the same sound and the two l's correspond to the same sound. So it is consistent, although there are words that are not that consistent, but we do have a very simple way to read words. While in English we don't have that that advantage. So let's look at the translation of these two words. As simple as that. So we have water, and we have the w sound, a r sound, and an sound. Okay, so with that we make water. So we have here a little bit of consistency, if we may, but when we look at valve, we see that these two a sounds, okay, these two a letters don't have the same sound, as we have here water and we have here valve. So here the consistency is lost, and while we have the e here and the e here we have a schwa sound with an r, and here it is a silent letter, so the consistency is completely lost. Although we have the two v's which are consistent here, but as you can see, it is more complex in English. So how can we solve this problem? So solving this problem about the consistency of English is more or less pretty simple. It's not as easy as Spanish, of course, when you can just read any word that is unknown to you just by seeing the word written. But in English, you can't and you shouldn't. Well, you can, but you shouldn't just assume the pronunciation of a word that you don't know. You should look the word on a dictionary in order to know the pronunciation of the word. That way, you avoid the mistake many people make, and not only non-native speakers, but native speakers also make this mistake when they see a word that they don't know, and they try to come up with the pronunciation just by intuition, and they also make these mistakes. So as English learners, I encourage you to not do this and to look each word that is unbeknownst to you in a dictionary, and of course go ahead and learn the pronunciation properly. And another thing that you may be asking is, teacher, why is English this way and not this way? Well, in that same guide, the guide that I told you to go get, you have there a video, a very funny video, by the way, talking about what if English was phonetically consistent. It's a pretty funny video explaining, how funny it would be if English were phonetically consistent, but it's not. So why? In this case, it has to do a lot with the history of English. Comparing it to Spanish, it comes from Latin, and Latin it is as well more or less phonetically consistent. So the roots of Spanish, okay, are phonetically consistent, so they as well has some phonetic consistency. While with English, its history, the roots of English come from very different origins. It's a mixture between different languages, and as well as different cultures, because not only the origins of a language in influence in its development, but also the culture of the people. As we can see that in England they speak a very different language than in America, and also the same thing applies for Australia. All of these countries that speak English, they speak it very differently because of that, because although they have the same well, not exactly the same roots, but they have the same language and they share the same mixture between languages, they have different cultures, and the language develops in a very different way with the culture. So how to avoid this obstacle, this inconsistency in the language? Well, of course, every single time you find a new word, don't assume the pronunciation of the word. Go look it up on a dictionary. Okay, next up we have the comprehension of foreign sounds. Okay, for this part you have the obstacle, which is our brain's perception of sound. And this part is very well explained in your guide, the one from the 23rd again. So you can go look it up, because I added an extract from my favorite book, which is Fluent Forever by Gary Weiner, and that extract explains very thoroughly how we acquire sound. So I'm going to give you, it's just a very simplified version of that one. So when you're looking at here, we have the brain's perception of sound. What I want you to think about is what is happening right now. As you're listening to me, okay, you're listening to a recorded version of myself. You're not actually listening to my voice. It is it's a simulation. It's a recording of my voice reproduced by a machine. So it's not exactly my voice. So once you heard me, you right away knew that it was me. Why does this happen? Because your brain stores different sounds, in a very particular way, as it tries to record and store all these sounds and identify them and labels them as certain sound. So when you heard my voice, although it is a recorded voice and it is not exactly my real life voice, your brain, what it does is that it ignores this new sound, this distorted sound, and it compares it to the one stored in your brain, which is basically my real voice. So your brain doesn't say, okay, this sound is the teacher's recorded voice. No, it just say that's the teacher's voice, and that's how you know it's me. Hey, that's the teacher's voice, that's it. It doesn't say, okay, this sound is exactly what our teacher's recorded voice sounds. No, it just tells you, hey, this is the teacher, because as I compare the sound to the one stored in here, that's our teacher's voice. So why is this an obstacle, you may be asking? Well, as you can see here, we're talking about foreign sounds. So what happens when your brain hears a sound that it hasn't heard before? So what it does is that it as well ignores this new sound and it compares it to a sound that you obviously have. This is why in our first and second guide, for the one from the 23rd and the one after that one, I gave you some drills with minimal pairs, which are words that only have one phoneme difference in them, for you to practice the difference, trying to contrast the two sounds specifically. I gave you many of them, actually, since we've practiced more than 20 phonemes so far. Only in those two guides, there were 20 phonemes, more or less. And that is why we practiced that way. Because we have sounds, for example, like I told you, that they are on the third guide, not from the one from the 23rd, but the one after that one on Monday, which is been, and I think I put been. So these two words are very similar in pronunciation, but here we have an A sound, while here we have an E sound. So you may not hear the difference as of today yet, but that is the idea for you to keep practicing until you not only can understand the sound and recognize them, but also produce them. So this is a minimal pair because only these I and this EA phoneme, which is here, would be an E sound, and here would be an E sound. Okay, that is the only difference in pronunciation that these two have. And so here's where the obstacle begins. This sound, we do have it in our language, in Spanish, which is our E, or la letra I. But here the E sound, we don't have it in our language. So what our brain does is that it ignores this new sound because it is similar to this one. It finds a similarity in this sound, and what it does is that it compares it to this one, and it says, well, here you have this sound. It's not this exactly. It ignores it that right away and says, yes, bean and bean have the same pronunciation, okay? And it does that, making you mispronounce this word, not this one, because you do have this sound, but this word you may mispronounce it if you do not recognize this sound. So how do we fix this problem? Well, very simple. It is all about awareness and exposure. So that is why we're using phonemes, because maybe you're not listening to it, but once you're shown, okay, in a scientific way, that yes, these two sounds are not the same, okay, and native speakers recognize these sounds and they hear them, and they hear you mispronounce these sounds, and also your teachers and other non-native speakers that have practiced a lot with these phonemes, they know that you're mispronouncing these words. So it's all about awareness, okay, recognizing that these sounds are different and trying to understand that there are others that are very similar, but it's just your brain trying to trick you into making it, more simple. And the other way, okay, is exposure. Okay, you need to be exposed to these sounds until you're able to recognize them and find that contrast between these two sounds. So it's all about practice. Okay, so how do we fix it? Okay, being aware of these sounds, studying these sounds. Okay, studying either by minimal pairs, as I put you a lot of these two, a lot of exercise about these two in that material from last week, and about exposure. So practicing and practicing and practicing, either with with videos, series, TV, music, trying to find these sounds, okay, and being diligent about them until you can reach that moment when you are able to recognize them. Okay. Next up, we have pronunciation of foreign sounds. So we've gone over comprehending the sounds, okay, being able to recognize them. So let's go over pronouncing them. Okay. So when obviously just like your brain is used to hearing the sounds of your native tongue only, your mouth is also used to only producing these sounds. So what we do is simple: practice, practice, and practice. Once you can recognize these sounds, okay, in that moment you're able also to recognize when you are producing them, okay? Because if you can't recognize these sounds, then you can't produce them, because you may be saying them and pronouncing them, but you can't, exactly feel your mouth as it is, saying these sounds. But the idea is for you to say them and being able to say, yes, I said it the proper way. So practice, practice, and practice. Well, how? With books, reading out loud, using dictionaries to find odd words, audiobooks, okay, listening audiobooks and focusing on the pronunciation of each word, movies, TV, okay, videos, newspapers, music, etc. All of these ways, okay, to be exposed, okay, to the language and to be diligent and persistent with this until you can reach that point where you comprehend these sounds and you're also able to pronounce them the proper way. Okay, with all of this, we've covered those 2 weeks of practicing pronunciation, and I've given you the tips, okay, to be ready for next week's assignments. Okay, so remember, just practice, practice, and practice. Okay, be aware of these sounds, expose yourself to them. Okay, be diligent and persistent until you find the little differences in sounds, because all of these sounds, most of them, we just simply do not have them. Okay, just think about that. I just told you there are a minimum of 10 vowel sounds, and in Spanish we just have 5. So go ahead and practice. Good luck, guys, and have a nice week. Goodbye.